year so far. We've seen a lot of terrific films. We have a lot of them here at the theater. And again, a slice of life. Like last night's film, Nebraska, was just a section of a person's experience. And these types of films are very difficult to get produced because they're not splashy. They're not, and a lot of the new buzzword in Hollywood now is it doesn't make a lot of noise, you know. But to us, emotionally, our experience, this makes noise for us. So I'm glad you enjoyed it. Now, I want to introduce the star of the film. He plays the title character, and his name is Inside. That's his first name, Inside. And he's a terrific actor. He's originally from Miami. He went to Juilliard and graduated in, I think, '05. He did a lot of films and theater. He worked with Madonna on her movie W.E. He was in Robin Hood. He was in Drive, and that's where I worked with him a few years ago, where he also played Carey Mulligan's husband in this movie and in Drive. He's just a bad husband, that's all it is. He's a terrific young actor. Please welcome Oscar Isaac.
Wander the whole time? Or just like wander? You can do that.
Yeah. We can wander, we can sit, we can do anything.
Thanks everyone, thanks for coming.
I think the first thing that I would like to know is how did you get involved in this project? When did you first meet with the Coen brothers? How did the script come across your plate?
I auditioned.
Yeah, just the regular.
Yeah, it was very basic. I heard about the casting, and I auditioned for the casting director, and I did a couple scenes, and then I had to send in a song, which was "Hang Me, Oh Hang Me," the opening song. Everyone that was auditioning got a recording of Dave Van Ronk singing that song. That was the first time I had heard Dave Van Ronk. I had seen him in No Direction Home, the Scorsese documentary. Where he talks about how Dylan stole House of the Rising Sun from him. And that's all I had seen. And so I figured out how to play this song, and I did about 30 takes on my computer, and I sent in take 27. And then about a week later, I heard that the Coens would see me. They'd bring me back for a callback. And then I had about 2 or 3 weeks to prepare for that, and I came in.
Now, you have a musical background. You were in a rock and roll group, right? Was it rock? Pure rock? Or was it...
Pure, unadulterated rock.
Did you have hair down to your shoulders?
I had hair to here, and it was shaved underneath.
Oh.
I was in a rock band. I was in a punk rock band. I was a musical whore. I was like in every different kind of genre. Industrial, ska, hardcore bands.
What kind of whore are you now?
Whatever you need, baby.
So, but you weren't well versed in folk music then. There must have been a transition period for you.
Yeah, well, I grew up listening to Dylan and Van Morrison, but I wasn't really aware of this pre-Dylan time. And so before that audition where I had to come back into the room for Joel and Ethan and play for them live, I was very nervous because I had to figure out this particular style of playing. I wanted to play it the way Dave Van Ronk played, and he plays this thing called Travis picking.
Explain that.
Travis picking is basically it's very similar to ragtime piano or stride piano, we call it, where the left hand does the bass line and the right hand does the melody. But with guitar, it's just these 3 fingers. So the thumb is the metronome and plays the bass line, and these 2 fingers play the melody and the counter melody. It's very syncopated. And I hadn't played this style. And I happened to be doing this very small film at the time in Long Island. And I was doing a scene at a bar, and there was an older gentleman. It was basically a featured extra. He just had one line. He was the drunk guy at the bar. And in between takes, there was a guitar lying around, and he picked up the guitar and started playing, and he was the most amazing Travis picker I had ever heard in my life. He was incredible. He was just as good, if not better, than Van Ronk himself. And so I went up to him and I said, "Man, you're amazing." And he said, thank you very much." And I said, "You know, I'm auditioning for this thing. It's loosely based on Dave Van Ronk. Have you ever heard of Dave Van Ronk?" And he says, "I played with Dave." I said, "Really?" He's like, "Yeah, do you need guitar lessons?" I said, "Yes, yeah, I do." He said, "Come to my place." I said, "Where do you live?" He says, "I live on McDougal Street above the old gas line." So I go to his place. By the way, his name's Eric Franzen. I'm Eric Franzen. I said, "Okay." So I go to his place, and it was this little time capsule, and he had all his guitars up on the wall, and records piled up everywhere. It's a little rent-controlled apartment he's been in since 1969. And he started teaching me how to play. The first thing he asked me, he says, how long have you been playing guitar? I said, "About 20 years. He goes, "No, you've owned a guitar for 20 years. You've been playing guitar for maybe like 6 months." So then he started teaching me how to play, and I started opening up for him in little coffee shops in the village. And by the end of it, he said, "I see Dave giving you the thumbs up, kid." And that's what he sent me into the audition with. And I learned about 3 songs. You were only supposed to do the 1 song, but I learned these extra songs just to nail it, you know? And yeah, and that was that.
So when you went into the audition with the Coen brothers, did you say, "I know a couple extra songs"?
Yes.
Yeah, that's always the best.
Yeah.
You have a couple more.
Well, actually, because one of the scenes was the scene at the Gore Finance,
Yes.
where he starts playing Dink's song.
Yeah.
And they had said, you know, "Don't worry about that part where you have to play." And I was like, "Oh, no, I know the song. I got it." And so I played the whole song through, and then...
You won it over
I
that.
won it so bad.
You won it.
Yeah.
You got it then. Did they also then, I mean, because that's one aspect of it, that was the first huge hurdle, that you could play and sing these songs and have that sensibility and soul for that.
Well, because it was live. All the songs were
Yeah.
recorded live. It's not playback, or there's no lip syncing or anything like that. So,
And then did they have you just read some dialogue to see if you could act?
yeah, well, there was 2 scenes that I had to do, and so and those are the same 2 that I did for the casting director, so they had seen that. I just did those again.
Because he really, Llewyn Davis really speaks through his music. He's rather taciturn. He doesn't have a lot to say. He's kind of a moody guy. Did you have a difficult time getting into that sensibility? Or,
Yeah, it was interesting because yeah, he's a guy that's definitely an island unto himself, and doesn't express much warmth, or at least he doesn't use traditional means to express warmth. So yeah, that was a difficult thing to access, because my energy is very much the opposite. You know, I come to people with that sense of I mean you no harm, and I laugh and smile to know that, you know, everything's okay, and he's very much not that. So I spent a good month beforehand with his costume, and I would go to public areas and parties and try to interact the way that I felt Llewyn would interact. Because he's not coming from a place of cool either. He actually wants to connect, but he just doesn't want to charm or ingratiate himself. He just wants to be accepted for who he is. And it was an interesting thing.
yeah, I didn't think he was so much antisocial as much as he was anxiety-ridden.
Yeah.
He desperately needed a venue, a place to be appreciated for his music and his art form. And it's certainly felt to me that we felt that this guy, if he didn't find this outlet, that he would just explode. He would just fall apart.
Yeah. I mean, you know, the Coens, they're not so much interested in what life necessarily looks like, but what it feels like. And I think that the movie, they say it's inside Llewyn Davis, so it's through his point of view. So it's that he feels like an alien. He feels like everyone is from another world, and they're hostile towards him. And he's trying to connect, but he's being so overwhelmed with what's happening that by the time he understands how he should be acting in the scene, it's over already. And so he's just kind of looking at it in the rearview mirror again and be like, oh, I guess I should have acted differently there, but I just have to keep surviving.
Well, I know the question will come up, so I'm going to ask it first. What are they like on the set? What's their temperament, the Coen brothers? Do they discuss amongst themselves a lot, and then Joel talks to you personally, or do they just let you go? And only if there's an issue or a problem do they step in?
Well, there was a lot of conversations beforehand. I went down to their offices, and it was really me that was pushing that idea. I said, can we just talk through every scene? And they said, sure. And so we would talk through every scene, and I'd say, so where is he here? And what's happening here? Why is this scene here? And talk about it in that way. So when it came time to do it, we were pretty much on the same page. So I had a lot of license to play around, and whenever they would come up, it would be a slight adjustment of pace or rhythm, or, all right, that's interesting, maybe make this word mean this now. But something that I had to get used to very quickly was the fact that they never compliment. They never say that was good.
Do they make a face?
Yeah, that's the face. It's like, that's good. Yeah, yeah, that's what you get, and you have to kind of decipher what that meant.
For actors to see the face of consternation.
Yeah. But if they like something, they go,
Yep.
Yeah, it's basically that. It's what else would it be? Would be the thing. But what that does is it immediately, at that first week you're terrified. You think I'm single-handedly ruining a Coen Brothers movie, and then you realize, oh, that's how they treat everybody. It's actually, it takes away that need for approval. So everyone just has equal share in ideas, and as soon as you give out an idea, it's not yours anymore. So you wouldn't be complimented for it because that's just the raw material to make the thing.
Well, that's an interesting transition. I wanted to talk to you about what it felt like to bear the brunt and the responsibility of carrying a movie. It's all you. This movie lives and dies on your shoulders. Did you feel that coming in? Hey, you're fine now. You did great.
Oh, God. So hard. Yeah, it was the first time. It was my first time doing that.
Did you feel that pressure before starting the film?
If I did, I had to just put it behind me, like Satan, get behind me, because if not, I'd get paralyzed with fear about it. So I had to convince myself that no one was really going to see it anyway. So who cares, right?
The more that you got into your character, the more that you went out on your own playing gigs, and that's right, you went around and played. Did you announce yourself as Oscar Isaac, or did you?
Yeah.
And you're just playing some music, and they didn't, people either knew you or they didn't know you. And
yeah, it's there's obviously when you start a movie, there's quite a wide gulf between who you are and who the person that you're going to portray is, and then that whole process of figuring it out, which is one of the most exciting parts of I think what we do. That there's affinity there, and you have to figure out how to bridge that gap and how to make them both. Well, how to make it you. It stops being playing the other, and somehow you synthesize both of those things. So that whole process was one of trying to figure out where that brackish water, where I end and he begins.
Right. Let's take some questions from the audience to find out. Yes, sir. The question is he still living? He's alive right here. So.
I think so. No, it's a fictional character. LLEWYN Davis is a made-up character based on a bunch of different people. Dave Van Ronk was an inspiration. He is no longer alive. He died in 2002.
The album cover is of him, and wasn't the album a real album?
The album cover that we saw in the movie was of Oscar, and who was the other? Was that?
That's actually a musician named Critter, who is a guitar player for the Punch Brothers. It's a great bluegrass band, and they just liked his face, so he was the face of Mike Timlin, who was part of the duo. LLEWYN Davis and Mike Timlin were a duo, but it's all fictional.
But Mumford was actually
Mumford was the voice. Yeah,
vocal
Marcus Mumford did the song. Yeah.
And how was it working with him? I mean, ask your children. Mumford and Sons, they're great.
Yeah, part of
I had to too.
Yeah, he's actually married to Carey Mulligan. They're married, and he called up T-Bone Burnett, who's a producer of the music, legendary T-Bone Burnett, and asked if he needed someone that if you need someone to make tea. And T-Bone said, actually, you should come and sing. And so he came out and was part of the whole recording process. Because even though we did all the music live, there was a week, about a month before we started, where we went to Avatar Studios, which is one of the last fully analog studios in New York City. And T-Bone Burnett, it's a fully sensory experience with T-Bone Burnett as a producer. He makes sure the lighting is right, that he burns Palo Santo, and other things he burns.
Who is Palo Santo? And why was he burned?
Palo Santo is actually a wood, a piece of wood that has this very specific odor that it happens to also inspire, take away headaches, and cover up the smell of weed.
Very, very important in the music business. But, we'll get back to T-Bone Burnett in a second. Yes, ma'am. Were you a cat person before the movie? You knew that question was coming.
Yeah. No. And I am less so now.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned Dylan. Did you immerse yourself in other artists back in the early 60s, like the Weavers and maybe Seeger?
Yeah.
And also, the second part of the question is, did the Coen brothers have this movie rights for a while before they maybe held on to it when the resurgence of folk music seemed, like you mentioned Mumford and Sons and the Olms and things are coming out now?
Well, yeah, the first part of that, I did. I really, Dave Van Ronk was my lifeline. I gravitated to his music, and I listened to everything that he's recorded and spoke with his widow a lot, just because his particular take on the scene. There's a book called The Mayor of McDougal Street, which was a big inspiration, which are his memoirs. And he was a merchant marine, and he's a guy from the boroughs, who didn't have a whole lot of commercial success, but he was a very different type of person. He was boisterous, and he was a 6'5", 300-pound Swede, and this is not so much that. So yeah, it was a different character. But I listened to Karen Dalton, was someone that I thought was an amazing singer. If anyone that hasn't heard of her, she's incredible. Really tragic story, but beautiful singer as well. And Lightning Hopkins and Reverend Gary Davis, who are all finger pickers in that same style. As far as the Coens holding on to it, they've been working on it for about 10 years, but they weren't holding on to it in terms of the resurgence of folk. I think, ironically, that you can attribute the resurgence of folk to all those kids that watched Oh Brother, Where Art Thou and got the soundtrack back in the day and grew up and decided to make, have folk bands. It's the influence of T-Bone.
Very good question about that. And because you asked a musical question, we're going to give you a little prize. We're going to give you, no, yes, and yes. Both of those. Right on the button. That's it. Thank you very much. Wow. Okay, thank you very much. We're going to give you an actual record player and an album. A real album.
That's sweet.
Well done.
How about that?
Well
So you never know. We may have a car to give away.
Get the Karen Dalton record for sure.
The other question is, were hallways really that narrow up in...
Okay, take the thing away from me. Take it away. Come on.
Thank you.
Yes, those were all actual hallways that were shot in the village.
I just want to talk a little bit more about T-Bone Burnett, who Academy Award winner, beautiful musician. He did all the arranging of Crazy Heart, wasn't it? Crazy Heart with Jeff Bridges a little while ago, and a lot of people who were not used to his music were introduced to him at that point. And so, was he on the set with you throughout, or was it just for the recording session?
Just for the recording sessions. He would, because we were doing it with no playback, he would sit and follow the songs for tempo. He would time them all. Because if there was a variance one way or the other, they wouldn't be able to cut in between the takes.
Right.
Sometimes we would do up to 25, 30 takes of the songs. Because you'd think, there's 5 setups, and each setup is about 3 to 4 takes.
Yeah.
It's a lot of time. So it had to be the same every time. And I didn't have a click track either. And so he'd be there in the corner, timing them to make sure they were always on. And then, occasionally come up and say, you have to loosen up your hand a little bit, it's getting a little stiff, or
Really?
that time I hurt the guy. Little things like that. It was always the gentlest
Yeah, little
reminder.
nudge.
Yeah.
That's great. Yes?
I have to ask, how was it working and singing with Justin Timberlake?
Probably the second most question, I would guess.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
The cat and Timberlake?
Yeah. So you guys did good. Yeah.
I'm surprised it came from a young woman.
That was weird. That was unexpected.
Very unexpected.
Yeah. He was an asshole.
There you go. Huge jerk.
Huge. Enormous.
Huge.
Enormous asshole.
Actually.
Yeah.
Just leave it at that.
I'm just gonna leave it at that. No.
He would appreciate that. Actually, he would.
He was so excited and happy to be playing such a dork, and fully committed to it. And actually, what was really cool was when we were working that week at Avatar Studios, both Marcus and Justin were working on their album as well. So I got little previews when they would just be in the corner working on their albums, figuring out songs. And he was great. He stayed for all of it. You know, he just had the 2 songs, but he was involved in the entire musical process, and was so supportive. And they were like my biggest cheerleaders.
That's a fun scene in the recording studio with Adam Driver, and that's such a dumb song. And I could see it in your face, like, okay, I need the $200. I'm just gonna play this. Okay.
You know, that was one of the few moments when they actually had some improvisation in the movie, and partly that was based on an actual conversation that Ethan and I had when he's like, do the pupas, and I was like, what? Pupas? You want me to puppa? And then Justin started laughing, like, we should actually have this conversation from the thing. They're like, yeah, do that. So that was actually
brilliant. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so I'm curious, did I hear you correctly that you said to prepare for the role, you played in Greenwich Village? So talk about how that was when you were doing it for the movie versus today, playing in those same places.
Yes. So this buddy of mine, Eric Franzen, that I told you about, I started opening up for him. He would play a couple of spots in the village. They were more like open mics, but he would always show up at the end and always play the last song, but he would let me play that song before he got up. And it's the same. It's the same now as it was in the 60s, as it was in the 1860s, and all the way back. So one guy with an instrument playing for a crowd of people trying to tell a story. And that's where I was trying to find the balance between something that's very intimate, this window into this guy's soul, but at the same time it can't be so self-involved that there's not a generous aspect of it that's trying to tell a story. So, that's where I tried to figure out that balance.
And is it true that you did the movie just on the tips you made when you were playing the songs? How were the tips? Did people tip you? There's always that chasm between art and commerce, and these guys, Eric going around open mic nights, this guy is, like, as you said, one of the best pickers you've ever seen.
Yeah.
And his economic status was probably shaky at times.
Yeah. Well, I mentioned in the movie, LLEWYN says it's just a basket house, and that's what a basket house means. The basket gets passed around, and that's how people make money. So that's the thing. I mean, Dave Van Ronk at one point in his book, he said, would I have loved to have made more money? Sure. Of course, but I got to play music my whole life, and that's the only thing I ever wanted to do since I was a child. And if you can find a way to do that, that's got to be a triumph of some sort. And I think that's why the movie ends, I think, in an uplifting note, because this guy's going to keep doing it, regardless of what,
Punched in the face or whatever.
Yeah.
He's going to be successful. Very good. Yes, let's go another question. Anybody in the back? Yes, sir.
How much of the Coen's original screenplay made it into the film as written?
I'd say 98%, 99, yeah. Almost all of it. There's maybe 3 or 4 lines that were taken out. That's about it.
Any scenes that you shot that were cut from the final version?
Not a one.
Everything's in there. It's unusual. Yes.
Can you address the production design, because that is like spot on Greenwich Village at that period? And also, second question is, if you were offered to sing at the Oscars, would you do so?
Well, I'm flattered that you asked. I'd have to think about it.
The production design. I think what's really amazing about the production design is, of course, they recreate so much of those streets and those hallways, but they had to get little things that you don't think about, like the locks on the windows and the frames and all these little bits that are completely different now. So they did an amazing job with that, and a lot of really smart CG that was put in there. Like, for instance, the subway cars. That's all CG because they don't look like that anymore. Yeah, and they don't run anymore. So they had to put those in with computers, and yeah, so that was pretty interesting. And yeah, of course I would. Yeah.
You sing, the question was, if asked, would you sing at the Oscars? And the answer is
yes. I do that.
Now, another thing is that you smoked a lot in this film, and you're singing and smoking and singing and smoking. How did that affect your voice after? I mean, very harsh.
In a good way, yeah. Because most people want to get that gravel, so you would try to. I remember Marcus even said for their first album, what he would do before each take would smoke 4 cigarettes in a row and then scream into a closet to try to get some rasp there. But I'm not a smoker, so that definitely. There was a couple days when I had to go throw up in the trailer just from having to smoke so much. It was intense, yeah.
Thank you. Yes.
Two parts. One was that your guitar, your personal guitar that you used in the movie?
And now it is now.
It is now. And the other part is for your passion, acting or singing.
The first question was, is the guitar in the movie his personal guitar? And the answer was, it is now. Sorry about that. And then the second question is, for his personal taste, personal passion, singing or acting?
Well, real quick about that guitar. The very first thing that I had to do is they flew me out after I got the part to meet the legendary T-Bone Burnett, and he was going to pick me up and take me to find LLEWYN's guitar. So I was in L.A. and he showed up and said, "Hello, I'm T-Bone, and we're going to go find your guitar." And so we got in the car and drove out to the Valley to Tarzana and to Norm's Rare Guitars. And I proceeded to play all these old vintage guitars. And I played a bunch of different ones, and then I picked up this little L1 Gibson from 1924. That's the guitar that I have. It's the Robert Johnson guitar. That's the one that he played at the Crossroads when he sold his soul to the devil. And the one that rock and roll was invented on. And so I started playing. It was very difficult to play, but it made this little evil sound, and T-Bone looked up and said, "You're making music with that one." And I'm like, that's the one. And so at the end of the shoot, the very last shot, it was, I think, me putting a needle of a record down, and then Joel and Ethan came out with the case. And they handed it to me, and I opened it up, and they said, "Look inside." The guitar was inside. And I picked it up, and they had a plaque in that same case, and the plaque said, "Wow," which is a reference to when my dad shits himself after I play him this beautiful song, and I said, "Wow." So, yeah, one of the most beautiful presents I've ever gotten.
Thank you. Another music question. Give that man a CD.
Oh, but the music and acting, I've never separated the two, so they're just,
yes.
Just wondering if Eric has seen the movie and if he will continue to have any engagement.
Yeah, well, he's still over there, so I've been away for a while, and but I think he did get a chance to see it, and he was really happy about it. And I've been telling his story a lot, so I think there's been a few people that have gotten his side of the story, and he's pretty psyched about it. He's actually, you may have seen him because he's an actor as well. He plays the German Chancellor from now and then on the Colbert Show, the Colbert Report.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. Yeah.
That's quite a gig. It's not as prestigious as the character that you played in a movie called Lenny and the Wonder Dog, and you played a character named Fart Man.
It's pronounced Fartman.
I'm sorry?
Fartman.
Fartman. But it's actually spelled Fart Man.
It's spelled Fart Man.
Was it a condition or an actual name?
The movie was so bad that it had nothing to do with the character. He never farted. There was never a reference to him farting. His name was just Fart Man.
That little tidbit on IMDb will always ensure this man will be stable in his life. His head will never swell because we have this on him. You know, I wanted to ask one question also about the gaslight. Now,
Speaking of fart,
the gaslight. Gaslighted. And what's the condition of it? Is it still, no, it's out? It's out of business?
no, it changes. There's a lot of turnover there. So it used to be quite a bigger space. It was cut in half, and it changes all the time. There was a club there for a little bit, run by the nephew of the original owner. And they had folk nights there every now and then. And I actually got to play there with John Goodman. We had a folk night, and John and I did St. James Infirmary, which was a lot of fun. But now I think it's closed right now.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Two questions. Who played Dylan at the end, and what's next for you?
Who played Dylan at the end of the movie?
They found some kid that looked a lot like Dylan.
And what's next in your world?
I'll be doing J.C. Shander's next film. That's the guy that did All Is Lost and directed that. So I'm going to be doing that in New York.
Very nice.
Yes, sir.
What I wanted to ask you is, the fellow that fought you at the end or damaged you or kicked you, that we knew why because you insulted his wife. But what happened at the beginning of the movie when he did that to you?
Yeah. So. Yeah. So the question is, why did that guy beat me up at the beginning of the movie? How is that different from the end of the film?
Beat you up twice.
Well, it seems like it's twice, but it's really just the one time. Because what happens is, at the beginning of the movie, I get beat up, and then it's a flashback to a week earlier. And then the movie catches up to that moment again. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
So, the scene where you close the door on the cat, is that because the cat was bad luck for you?
The question was, the scene where you closed the door on the cat, is that because the cat was bad luck to you?
I just didn't want it to get out. Just didn't want that to happen
Thank you
again.
for that question. Yes. If you could play another musical act or genre or something else in a movie, what would it be?
Robert Smith, the biopic. That's the singer for The Cure. That'd be cool. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
So did you just have that one callback, and was it just for the Coen Brothers?
Yeah, it was just the one callback, and it was for Joel and Ethan, the casting director. Yeah.
Yes.
The Coen brothers have a few trademark actors that they bring in their movies. For instance, John Goodman. What kind of energy does that bring to the set?
Yeah.
The question was, the Coen brothers have a company of actors that they like to pull from, people they like to work with, of which you are now a member of.
Yes.
And so, like John Goodman has been in many Coen brothers movies. What did that do to the set? What was the energy like?
Yeah, they have an instant rapport, and they have a strange secret language where they talk in old movies together. And they say, like, give me the Jim Doug. And he knows exactly what that means. I'm like, all right. Yeah, so they've got a real working rapport. It's definitely fun to be around that.
Yes.
Question about there were two menorahs in one scene in the working house,
Mhm.
and then in the credits there was a circle about kosher something. What was that about?
Just means the movie's kosher. The movie's kosher. Kosher for Passover. In case you were wondering.
It seemed like at the end there when the cat came back, it seemed like maybe that was a little bit of a turning point for him, and maybe just things in his own mind kind of got better for him. The whole movie, everything was a disaster.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's a moment of optimism, at least.
You had the cat as a metaphor to luck changing?
Yeah, yeah, a moment where definitely it was definitely better for the relationship between him and the gore finds that they got their cat back. So that was a moment of respite, I think. Yeah.
Yes.
What was the budget on this film?
What was the budget? I don't know if you know, do you?
I know.
They try to keep those things around exact numbers.
15, 16, around there.
$15, $16.
But maybe as high as 95 million.
Yes.
I was just wondering about the previous musical career, because you said you were involved in music earlier, and now you have your name on a record.
Previous, you're asking about the previous musical career.
Yeah.
There was none. But I played music for a long time.
Are you trying to get a CD, sir? Is that what you're trying to ask a musical question to get a CD?
Yeah.
I could see right through it.
That is one of the coolest things. Yeah, no, that's pretty amazing, and the fact that it's a fully analog recording too is pretty incredible.
He's been into vinyl for a long time now. Another thing I found on IMDb. Yeah.
They have that up there?
Yeah.
With the Coen Brothers as directors, what did they do to gain your trust to fully let loose and get into that character? Like, what did they do as directors to get that from you as an actor?
They made The Big Lebowski.
Yeah. Well, it's like, yeah. Well, the question was, what did the Coen brothers do to gain his trust in them? And then that's the answer. They made these spectacular movies.
Yeah, there was, I was in their hands, whatever they wanted me to do, whatever suggestions they had. And really what they did, honestly, was let me into their whole universe. They were very generous about not only what their thoughts on the movie were, but on directing and actors and stories about actors they've worked with, and really developed a friendship with them.
All the way in the back.
Your acting reminded me a lot of young Al Pacino.
I was going for old Al Pacino, but I'll take it.
Stay with young.
Okay.
And I just wondered if you had any of that sense when you were preparing this character. There were maybe somewhat because of the time period, the 60s. He was obviously very active then, and I just think of all of the movies near the park, those sorts of things. If they had any impact on the way you approach this character, because obviously you're not from New York City.
Well, I've been there for about 13 years now, but
Well, then you are.
those are some of my favorite movies. Panic, Needle Park, and Dog Day Afternoon, and Cruising. Even I really like that movie a lot. So yeah, I've watched his movies a lot. So I imagine probably I've been ripping them off for a while now.
Oh yeah! Oh yeah!
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you carried the movie. It's an incredibly difficult role, and I think you did a magnificent job.
Thank you.
Thank
you very much.
I'm not always the biggest fan of the Coen Brothers, but I love their characters and they did themselves. But I may be the only one in the audience. Tell me in your words, what was the point of the movie?
That's a big question. What was the point of the movie? In one word.
In one word? Yeah, wow. Right? Yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, I think they just wanted to tell a story. Yeah, they just wanted to tell a story about this guy, and
that's the good thing about movie making, is that the point is what you took from it. That's the point. The point is that they wrote from an idea of what they wanted to say, and open a window to this one man's journey over the course of a week.
Yeah.
And in 1961, with very specific points to it. That he's a musician, he's trying to make his name for it, he's a good musician, he's having bad luck, he sometimes shoots himself in the foot. All those things are it. That's the point of the movie. So if we have a need to go beyond that, then maybe we're asking the wrong thing, I think, you know? It's like, what did you take for it? What did you feel emotionally after watching this movie?
I just thought that it was a Coen Brothers display of all the different characters that they could, how creative they were. And I understood what his role was. you're singing this song? What's the message? What am I learning? What, you know, I just.
Is there a message in a week of your life? You know what I mean? No, I'm not. I'm trying to be. I'm just saying that's it's rhetorical, really, because is there the message is experience. We're here to experience and to see look through someone else's life over the course of a week, in this case, or in the case of Nebraska last night or whatever, and that may be enough. It's like when you look at a painting. You're sitting next to someone who may have thought that this movie was the best they've ever seen, and someone who thought, yeah, I liked it. Maybe I liked it a little more than another one they did, or a little less than another one. But that's the wonderful thing about it. You're not wrong. You're not wrong in what you're feeling. And that's the great thing about it. It's art. It's how we all individually interpret it. We bring our own sensibility, our own history into the theater. We sit down, we watch it. It depends on how you feel today, how things went for you, how things are going in your life. You know, we bring all that baggage in with us, and we watch a movie next to 300 other strangers. It's the most unique experience you can imagine. And that's really it. That's my answer.
Yeah.
I'm curious of why did you choose acting? What inspired you to become an actor?
It didn't feel like a choice so much. I kind of was just always doing it. I always found myself. I think it was the only thing I was good at. You know, that and music at the same time were the things that interested me the most. So then when I did them more, I got better at them, and so I had more chances to do it more, and it just kind of fell that way.
Was there someone specific that?
Probably my dad. My dad played music a lot in the house growing up, and we had a video camera, so we'd make movies together and do that kind of thing, and I think that just made me interested in it.
Ma'am in the red?
Oh, yeah, the character in Singing Blues, the Irish Singing Blues, that seemed like it was based on the Clancy brothers, do you know? Joel and
Yes, that was based on the Clancy brothers. Yeah, that was an idea from them. Yeah. That was the Punch Brothers though singing that song. That was one of the few moments that was overdubbed. Yeah, Chris Steely's the one singing the lead. Yeah, exactly.
Yes, ma'am.
I think you have a beautiful voice.
Thank you.
And I really enjoyed the scene where you were playing for, was it Bud, the music hall in Chicago? And I'm wondering if there was one song that really meant a lot to you as you were performing it.
Yeah, that was an interesting song. The song that I played for Bud Grossman that F. Murray Abraham plays, which in itself has an irony to it. The patron saint of mediocrity is the gatekeeper at the gate of horn. The song that LLEWYN sings at that moment wasn't delineated in the script. It just said he sings a song, and so I've spent a lot of time trying to find a great song for LLEWYN to play at that moment. And I would bring them these different, blustery blues ballads. I had this idea that he was just going to sing his heart out, and I'd bring that to them, and they'd say, "Yeah, we're thinking something more white." And they're like, "How about this one?" And it was the death of Queen Jane, which was very lilting and beautiful, and I didn't understand it. I was like, this song's about a botched medieval C-section. And I said, why would he sing this song? I had no idea. And they just said, it'd be funny. And so I spent a month trying to connect to this thing about King Henry and Queen Jane and the women and this and that, and worked with T-Bone for the arrangement. And then at a certain point, I just had to let it go and just go with instinct. And it wasn't really until afterwards, when I saw it, that I thought, of course, this is the song that he sings. Because that's the whole role of what a folk musician is that they find some old, archaic song that's just covered in dust, and they bring it out, and they show it to you, and they make it relevant, and they make it about now and what's happening to his life. And it has everything to do with what's happening to his life, about finding out about a child that he has, and about the women that are they're having to sneak around to get abortions and all this stuff that's just coming up, and he thinks, you know what, he wants to hear a song from inside me. This is what's inside me right now. It's the most honest thing he can play at that moment, and of course it's also the wrong song to play at the moment if he's interested in a career.
Give that woman a CD. That was a good question. Yes, you're in the back too.
I have another musical question. The character was kind of loosely based on Phil Oakes.
I think the Coens are very Dylan-esque in the way they work. You know, they take from all sorts of things. So I think, we all were aware of Phil Oakes. Yeah, and his depression, obviously, that led to his death and all that. Yeah, I think all those guys were inspirations.
Okay, we have time for just a couple more. Yes, sir?
Yeah, I thought in several of the scenes, the harmonies were amazing. Did the musical director arrange those? Did they flow naturally from the scene?